What is going on, guys? It's Joshua Man, and I'm back again with yet another video, and this is me discussing a topic that still has a right of its own, but is different at the same time. It is the PlayStation Vita and the ultimate flop of it. Now, when the system first released in 2012, it was a good idea. It was, a right of its own. You had a handheld Sony console with the first major adjustment was 2 thumbsticks that could bring in a lot of opportunity for games, and that is me going ahead and letting go of the touchscreen. It had the touchscreen, which the Nintendo DS had at the time, which everybody was for the Nintendo DS. Everybody, pretty much loved it. That is the one thing that Nintendo has produced that still stands its ground today. Its home console is struggling a little bit, but its handheld is still good. So you had the touchscreen on the PlayStation Vita. That was innovative. It was, you had your fingerprint. You also had the 2 cameras they added. It had a front-facing and a back-facing camera, both of which were decent. Not perfect, but they were decent. And then you had the touch panel on the back. Now, these were all innovative things. They were very good. They should have helped the PlayStation Vita tremendously. The only issue is not a lot of developers were willing to put the time and effort into what the PlayStation Vita needed, in order to be a very good home, functioning portable console. And with the Nintendo DS, it was simple. It was cartridges, It started with cartridges. With the Vita, you had all this technology and all this possibility being put into a small cartridge. And another thing that possibly contributed to the flop of the PlayStation Vita was its prioritized memory card slot. You had to have specific memory card. You couldn't just put a good old SD card in there. You couldn't put a micro SD. You couldn't do any of that junk. You had to use the Sony PlayStation Vita priority, You had to do that. But I think the main thing was that not a lot of developers were pushing for this. You only ever had one Call of Duty game on the PlayStation Vita. One. It was like Black Ops Declassified. It didn't include anything big. It had a little bit of story, but the story was all put together in like several side missions. And then you had a little bit of multiplayer, but of course multiplayer on the handheld is nothing compared to a console. And then in terms of zombies, it didn't even include zombies, so you had that. Probably its major feature was the fact that you could buy some PlayStation Vita games, PlayStation portable games and play them on your Vita, and you now use the thumbstick. You could use that, you could play with that. But one of the major games was like Metal Gear Solid. You had the HD collection was re-released for the PlayStation Vita. That with transferring and all that stuff really helped it. But besides that, it was like you had the ability to play Peace Walker. You can now use the extra thumbstick for that. It helped out a little bit. You had the back pads that acted like the L2 and R2 buttons. Stuff like that, helped out with it. But ultimately, there weren't enough games. There weren't enough major games. There was a lot of, like, off games. Like, if I make sense, it would be, can't think of the term, but major games is what I'm saying. You'd have like a lot of side games. You'd have like a lot of old games that were revived for the PlayStation Vita, stuff like that. Nothing huge and tremendous that would go out and buy it now. Which with the DS and the 3DS, this was another big issue. It was entirely overpriced. The PlayStation Vita, when it first came out, I believe was $250, and when you buy a $250 system, you're expecting something big. Like, nowadays, you can get $250, you can buy a used PS4 or a used Xbox One. You're going to spend $250 on a PlayStation Vita.
Good job.
With the 3DS, it launched at $250. It quickly learned that was a mistake. Nobody was going to pay $250 for a Nintendo 3DS. So they dropped that like no tomorrow. It was like $170, I think, within the next year, because I ended up getting one because it was so cheap. But they fixed that. That's another way Nintendo thrives. They aren't afraid to make a price cut because they know their products sell. Everybody wants a DS, and that's not me being a fanboy. I'm completely a Sony fanboy. You can check out my channel. That's all I've played since I was young. I had an Xbox One at one point because all my friends had it, but it didn't work for me. I have not owned a Wii U simply because it did not look like a good system at the time. I was waiting for a price drop and it never happened. But the main issue with the PlayStation Vita I see was it was too little too late. You had everything that any other system had at a much higher price, and it had a great screen, don't get me wrong. It had a beautiful screen, beautiful LED, but it just retina display rather, but it was just too late. Like, you had all these other options out there, you had everything like that, and even a couple years later the PlayStation Vita dropped, but they dropped the retina display too. It didn't make sense. But I don't know, it's just my rant on where the PlayStation Vita could have been better, where it could have thrived more. If you like the video, leave a comment, subscribe. Peace.